size subdivision, it's 91.7.
You see my face at the beginning of the video.
Southern Woods is 92.9.
Quail Creek, that's me.
I know where Quail Creek's at. That's a pretty nice guy.
Tale of two load balancers. Does that mean one failed?
No.
Soon find out. Oh, that should have been the first slide. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Dang! I never even thought of that.
Slacking. I sent you everything
I know.
had.
It's my bad.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
What's
I
that?
like that presenter console.
Yeah.
There you go.
I would have put my notes if I'd have known how to make it work.
Separate paper.
Welcome to the June Omaha Linux Users Group meeting. I'm your host, John Larson. I am a systems engineer at the AIM Institute. I work for that man, Adam Hayter. He's going to be speaking tonight with this man, Greg Wolf. Yay! I'll make a little bit of an announcement. On the OLUG site, in the top part, there is a donate button. Our president has been paying for the site.
Our illustrious president.
Our illustrious president, who had a great presentation about IPv6 a couple months ago. And it is recorded in the Ustream channel, so if you'd like to see it, you can. He has a donation button to help pay for expenses of the OLUG server because it's running on a Linode. So it's like $20 a month or something like that. I think. Yeah, they're all the prices are on the web. So if anybody feels like contributing, they can. It's like a PayPal donate. You don't have to give $20. You can give whatever you feel. So I'm sure they'll appreciate me talking about that.
Yeah, what's this January? It's been on there for quite some time.
Yes, but I just never remember to
2 years.
say anything. Yeah, I keep forgetting.
Okay.
But it is IPv6 ready for tomorrow.
Because what is tomorrow?
World IPv6 Day.
World IPv6 Day.
Yep.
Is OLUG a charitable organization? Or whatever
Not
the hell it's called?
formally.
Okay.
We're not anything.
It's not.
We're a collective, a loose collection of
You're not a
individuals with
registered
like minds.
corporation with the
No.
state of Nebraska?
No.
That's what I was getting
Oh,
at.
we could,
The state
but
of
then we'd have to
Nebraska.
have a few extra things. We'd have to get a treasurer and all that stuff, and
Bylaws,
we'd have to have
We have to be all official.
You have to have officers and bylaws.
and elections and stuff like that. So,
And a
which is
lawyer.
why your officers haven't really
Lawyer to
changed
write up.
much in 12 years.
Yeah, a lawyer to write up a few items to be submitted.
I
And
think
Tim
I'm-
O'Brien, the officer emeritus.
Tim's probably watching right now.
Could be.
Watching on the stream and up there.
At the same time, so you're one of the viewers?
I am now. After you looked, I went ahead and loaded.
Hey, we're up to 3.
All right.
That's what. That's what.
So you're going to run the chat room then?
But here's the funny part. Here's the funny part. It's like about 5-10 second delay.
Oh,
So you do stuff like this,
Oh, yeah.
and then
At least,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now
That-
we start. There you go. Hey, but the pop-up ad just came up from the Linux Foundation.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, at least it's in context, not Microsoft.
Sure.
And I'll say 32 and a half.
We'll do the question and answer portion afterwards. I'm glad George is here because we'll talk about next month. So, woo, go ahead.
CBs and program.
I guess I probably should have titled it A Tale of Two Types of Load Balancers.
Silence all cell phones.
Back in about 3 months ago, we had a situation that we needed to address with Miller Public Schools. We needed some load balancers. We went out. They went out, I should say. They didn't talk to me first. They went out and talked to people like F5. They talked to Citrix and all these places. And
Man, how long has F5 been around?
I don't know.
Long
With what
time.
they charge, I'm surprised they're not around that long.
Somebody's paying that much.
They looked at a bunch of these load balancers, and they actually got one in. And I was laughing at them. Tens of thousands of dollars. Tens of thousands of dollars. I'm like, okay, guys, what if I could do it on the cheap? Okay. So I built 2 servers, 1 gig of RAM, 1 proc, and I'm doing what F5 was basically doing. I could do more, I'm just lazy. But
With some scrap hardware
So-
that was sitting in the warehouse.
Well, actually, no. I just took it out of my virtual environment. I mean, really, a gig of RAM out of the virtual environment. Woohoo! I'm not using any. You don't even notice it's there. I've looked at my performance of those boxes. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's wonderful. So Adam and I are going to show you two different ways that we're doing it. Draw some diagrams.
I added that. It's my turn. I'll get up there.
Okay, Adam's going to draw some diagrams. I'm going to have
knew I was
links
gonna draw
to
it.
diagrams. Oh, I know you. You can't sit long enough without your hands going nuts.
That's what she said.
Yeah, so this is, now I'm also doing this with our portal services. We run a product called Stoneware, which I'm sure I've talked about at least once. And when we redesigned it, I put 2 Linux load balancers in front of it with Linux on the backside because all my web front ends are Linux on that. This presented more of an interesting issue because what I worked from, my primary document I worked from, talked about having Linux on the backside. So I struggled quite a bit, and it took a long time to find the right website to give me how to get Windows set up properly with this virtual IP that I use. So where I thought I'd be done in an hour, yeah, it took longer.
Now, Craig, go back to that slide for a second, will you? When you say you need to load balance 2 or 3 Windows app servers, I assume this is like TCP access?
Yes.
We're talking about just like web?
Port 80.
80 and 443 or just 80?
They didn't want me to do the 443. They didn't turn it on because this is primarily all internal for the web servers.
Okay, so this is just,
Now,
they're Windows app servers, but it's all just port 80.
this is all port 80.
Okay.
But my portal services, that is port 443. So
Okay.
I have both there. And
Either it's just normal TCP traffic.
normal TCP
Okay.
traffic.
That too.
I haven't had any beer tonight.
That's the problem.
Yes. When I get home, I promise you, there is a vanilla vodka and Diet Dr. Pepper in my near future. So, if y'all want to follow along with the instructions that I've got, you can go out to the site, or you can hit Google and type Novell Load Balancer, and it should be the first or second link. It should come up to this. It's a long document, and it goes through the whole kit and caboodle. But what it's, like I said, it's all Linux based. For Windows, I needed to go to the Microsoft website on how to get my VIP, the virtual IP, working on Windows. It was just a little bit of a struggle. So the way that this works in this is you've got 3 types of load balancers that what I'm going to show you tonight can do. You've got your network address translation, and that's Adam's example for a little later. You've got IP tunneling, and you've got direct routing, which is my example. So I'm going to see if this works. Updates are ready to install. Great!
Good to know.
Go
Restart
ahead.
later.
All right, so let me drag this bad boy over there. Whoosh.
Diagrams.
Told you I was I'm not going to draw.
Is that
So-
packet trace?
So this is basically what I'm doing. You've got your request that comes in from the client. The load balancers have this virtual IP on them. So you hit this 200. This is the active load balancer right now. There's a heartbeat that runs between the two. When it gets a request, it sends it to one of the 2 real servers back in behind. You'll notice their IPs. This real server is 120, this one's 110, that's 10, and that's 20. So as far as the client's concerned, he's just talking to him, but all the work's happening back here. He's just handing it off, sending it back out.
And your example, the client is making a request to 192.168.0.200, right?
Yes.
Okay. But and the reply is always coming back from that same IP because your servers on the back end know about it. That's the whole VIP thing.
Right.
Okay.
Upside of this is I can very easily track and see all of the traffic. I can see what kind of performance. I can see everything because I know it's all going through this guy. Downside is, where's my bottleneck? But
Well, can I ask a question?
yeah,
Obviously, the incoming packets are going through that guy, right? Client goes to the cloud, goes to 0.200, which at the moment is this guy because this guy's standby, okay? But then the reply packet, like you have drawn here, the reply packet goes directly from him back to here. So really, and if we really draw a line, it'd be to some switch that was here through the
Yeah.
router, not going through him,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
right?
We had this conversation at Infotech.
Yeah, I was just wanting to understand how this works. So when you want it, when you say you do monitoring on this, you can monitor all the incoming stuff, but unless you're sniffing on the switch here, you don't really know what packet's going back, right?
Yeah, I don't know what's going back. You're
Okay,
right.
okay.
You're right.
I just want to make sure I understood.
Yeah. Yeah. So diagrams are good for click happys. I'll put that here. All right. So anyhow. All right. I'm a SUSE shop. We run SUSE Linux enterprise servers, so that's what I stuck with. Both times that I went to do this, tried to do it on SLES 11, SUSE 11, didn't work. There's something missing. I can't remember what that item is, and I apologize, but there's a piece missing, and I never could get it to work. I couldn't get it installed. There's a there you
Sorry
go.
about that.
But it works beautifully on SLES 10. They took something out of the kernel in SLES 11, if I remember right.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember what it is for the life of me. But well, Adam, that's because Novell sells a load balancing type software
Package.
Yeah, they sell something now. That's what it was. That's why they took it out. I couldn't remember.
Huh.
So you need your
It's
Unix.
not even a loadable module.
Like I said, I tried going through. I said we
Away
spent
from the
we spent like
kernel, maybe.
a week off and on playing with this, trying to make it work, and said, I need to accomplish this task. Screw it. SLES 11 goes out, SLES 10 drops in, and it worked. So
So you didn't try recompiling the kernel?
no, I didn't. Like I said, it's a case of time.
Easier to install than to.
Yeah, well, I can deploy OSs in 15. Well, no, I can deploy OSs in about 3 to 4 minutes. I just, yeah. You need Heartbeat, IPVS, and the Perl mail tools. This, you can get it separate, but it should come down with the IPVS,
And what does IPVS stand for?
IP Virtual Server, I believe.
Okay.
This here's the key. That's the key piece to all of it.
That's what gives you IPVS ADM, right? Okay.
Give me a sec. I'm looking at my notes here, see what I missed. The LDirector D monitors the health of the real servers by periodically requesting a known URL and checking that response contains an expected string. If the service fails, then it pulls that server out of the mix. We're going to go through some of that tonight. If we have time tonight, I'll remote into my machine at the office and I'll fire up my load balancer so we can look directly at them. Open of yeah, that would help to spell or.
I wonder what that meant too.
Or open up or kill your firewall so that you can get the traffic through. You got to turn on your IP forwarding, of course. You need to create an ha.d directory in Etsy, and I'll pull these files up. What's that? Yep.
It's not part of the package install?
What's that? No, it doesn't create the directory. Well, because you're creating the directory, you could put it anywhere.
I know.
You're not putting in the whole cluster, you're only putting in the heartbeat, so you're not gonna get all high availability with that.
Well, you're going to put all of the config files. They all go in this directory.
Yeah.
So your LDirector D conf, your
Right,
the
but you're
HACF.
not getting like the whole clustering from the, right, it's probably one of the other packages in the clustering software that creates that directory normally, it doesn't on the install.
Yeah, it should, but like I said, on mine it didn't.
Yeah.
When I installed it, it wasn't there. So, and the instructions actually say to create it. So, let's see if this works. I figured as much. Oh wait. Whoosh.
Nope.
Hey, where'd you go? It did do it. Hold on. Hang on. We'll do this the hard way. that's interesting. I can't get out.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
There we go. Oh, there we go. All right, so what we've got, so your timeout's 3 seconds, check intervals every 5 seconds. It's gonna do an auto reload.
So it's actually one of the few services that you don't have to restart the service when you modify the config file because of that.
Yeah,
One of the few services on Linux where that's the case.
I just left it, I leave it run.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, this is a key one that'll bite you in the ass, bottom, whatever. These have to be tabs. These have to be tabs. It will not read this section properly if it's not tabbed. You can't use spaces. It's a tab. That's 4 hours worth of work. Believe me.
It's probably written in Python.
So don't cut and paste.
What's that?
So don't cut and paste.
No, no.
Don't do it in
That's what got me.
Don't do it in
Cut and paste
Notepad
worked great.
FTP it over.
Yeah, I've been there. That sounds like somebody with some minor coding skills should submit a patch.
You got to list out your real servers. If you look at the man page, or Google this, there's options to put out here. I stuck with the defaults. I didn't get too crazy. I didn't do anything funny. Your fallback. What I ended up doing was I created more or less a 404 page saying all of the application servers are down, try again later. And I had it point to the local server, to the local load balancers. So that way if all of the servers go down, you've got something that you can fall back to versus a dead page. Now, Adam, it's service. You can identify the service, so you may be able to do more with it.
I don't really what that does though, because you're identifying port 80 above there. So what is, I don't know what that service equals really does.
Well, when I did my portal services, I had to create a second section for port 443 and identify all of
Yeah.
these and HTTPS for all of this as well.
My question is, if you just took out that service line, would it affect anything?
Never tried.
Yeah. Because it just seems redundant, you know, you're saying port 80, you're saying.
Well,
What happens if I'm running telnet on port 80 just to be stupid?
Or HTTPS.
On port 80, yeah.
Yeah.
You're
You
gonna
can
make
do
do
that.
it, right?
I don't
Yeah.
think it would stop you.
My config looks similar, I just never knew.
Yeah. Like I said, I didn't dive too deep. I dove in deep where I had to make something work.
Yeah.
So the file it's going to look for at the root of your real servers is going to be on, for this it's test.html, and inside it's going to look. If it pulls that document and it sees something other than still alive, server's considered dead and it takes it out of the mix. And
So-
again, spaces are important.
So if it sees something other than still alive, or is it, if it does not see that string in the received document?
It's looking for that string.
Exactly that
That
string, nothing
exact
more.
string, in quotes, or not in quotes, but
Nothing more.
Nothing more. It's looking for that string. You give it something else, it considers the site dead, or it considers the server dead. There's a number of different schedulers you can use. I stuck with the default.
That stands for weighted least cost is what the WLC one is. There's some logic behind the different schedulers that you can pick with regards to like round robin or weighted round robin, or there's a bunch of different things you can do there. But yeah, WLC is the default.
The type, your service equals,
Yeah.
does a regex against it to tell what it is. So like a simple TCP command. So it knows it's HTTP. I mean, that's what the config says, but I mean, it doesn't really explain. It tests against the received regex. Other types of checks connect to the server using specified protocol. Please see request
Oh, so it's
received.
just for the check?
Yeah, it's that
So you
service
give it port-
equals.
Okay, well, that makes sense. So if you're running like HTTP on a non-standard port, it can't assume that port, 31337.
'Cause it won't know how to
HTTP.
test that specific-
Exactly, that's what it's for. It's for the test. Okay, that makes sense.
Now, I was saying the gate. In my notes, I actually had it. That's the method. So my method is gate, which means the direct routing. Your method would be
NAT.
NAT. So that's what determines it. You also see, once you
Yeah.
get your L Director D set up,
Mine there says MASQ for Masquerade.
once you get the other set up, you set up your heartbeat, which is a very simple text file. Let's see if it'll let me drag it across. Of course not. I said escape.
Escape.
So, in your HA, you've got to identify your nodes, and they've got to be exact. So if your nodes are Beavis and Butthead, you edit your host file, make sure it's proper in there, make sure it's the same in here. You got to tell it what NIC to be on, and what port to use for the HA. Nothing too crazy.
When you were doing that config, did you look at any options like a serial port versus a network port?
No.
Okay.
Only thing I played with was the server names. My server names aren't, of course,
Sure.
L Director 1 and L Director 2, which the individual I was working with was very upset with me. He's like, no, we got to stick to exactly what. This I can understand. We can work with this. All right, I'm not going to go into the node authentication. You've got to set up your authorization keys. Make sure you set it readable or writable by root only. Your name resolution, make sure you can resolve. Thank you. Make sure you can resolve the servers you're attaching to, as well as both of the directors, both of the LDAP.
I'll direct.
Holy cow, my mouth is quitting.
Just
on
go.
Sure
me.
you didn't have any drinks for me?
Yeah, you
No, I
me.
saw him.
I had straight up water. Time synchronization is important. The reason it's important is not the reason that I thought it would be. Time synchronization is important so you can look at the log files if there's a problem. That's really all it comes down to, is it's the log files. Because the L Director D, the HA stuff, is talking back and forth already. So it knows talking to itself, but it's the log files when you develop an issue. This is how I figured out one of my servers wasn't running right, was because of the time. My time was off, and it took me a lot longer to figure out the problem. So the time was more important than I expected. Okay, so there's two ways to propagate that ha.cf file. You can either run the userlib heartbeat ha propagate, which will, whatever servers you've identified as load balancers, it'll propagate that file to the ha.d directory, or just copy it over. Both ways worked. Start the heartbeat software on both nodes, and then use this command to check the status. Did I? No, I did not. Well, basically, you'll take a look and you'll just see if the HA software sees both servers. It'll tell you whether they're online or offline. Very simple. Okay, create a user on, if it's not there already, create a user called HA cluster. Make sure you set the password. And then, the hard part. Connect to get on one of the load balancers, and you're going to launch this HB_GUI application. You have to have X. You have to have X. Ticks me off to no end. I don't run X on my servers, so I actually run Xming on my Windows box so that I can push back.
So you're just exporting.
Yeah, I'm
You only
exporting
have to have
the
like
display.
X off on the.
Yeah. This is, when you look at the document, regardless of whether it's SUSE, whether it's Ubuntu, or whatever else it is, pay close attention in this section of that document, because this cost me a day's worth of work because I didn't pay attention. I'm willing to talk about my screw-ups. When it says to create something called load balancer, and then you're going to create a monitor resource, or you're going to create something else, make sure you scroll through the list, find the item you're looking for, click on it, and then put in your settings. Well, probably easier to show in setting up the VIP. So when you launch that HB GUI, first thing you're going to do is you're going to create a resource. You're going to create this load balancer group with a resource ID of VIP. And here's what I'm talking about. This type section. Make sure you go find the one that they're talking about. Click on it before you put in the parameters. Otherwise, it's sitting on the very first one, and you're putting in parameters for that, which isn't going to help you at all.
Do you always have to add the parameter at the bottom, or are those already there?
You have to add the parameters.
All right.
You have to add the parameters. So when I click on this, IP shows up. So I can then fill in the IP address, but LVS support isn't there. So you need to add that by hand, type it in. One of the ways you know you're doing it right is if you click add parameter, screen pops up and you type in IP. It's going to change the screen based on that. If it's not right, the color's the same, it doesn't do anything, and it'll be off. It's hard to explain, but once you look at it once, it makes sense. But
Syntax highlighting.
yeah, it's contextual. It's contextual. When you're setting up the virtual IP, so you're going to set up your virtual IP. This is the IP of the site that the clients are going to hit, and make sure you turn on LVS support. Make sure you set LVS support to true. When you're done, you can click add to put that in. Wow. I'm having fun. All right, once you create it, once you create that load balancer group, it's going to have the VIP sitting there. You're going to need to add on the right side of the screen here in this HP GUI. You go to the right side of the screen, you click on the VIP, currently running, it's going to say it's off. Click on operations, then you can add the monitor. Turn the monitor on, set the interval, timeout, and start delay. Make sure you set on fail, it's set to restart, and click OK. And that'll add it over on this side for the load balancer and setting up that virtual IP.
Does that propagate to the other one?
Yeah, because the HA is configured. This is all against both of them.
Okay.
See, and that you'll know. You can see here your nodes. It sees both servers, so you'll know which one's running and which one is the failover.
Current. Okay.
So pop back to here. Then you need to set up the resource of the L director. Setting up the heartbeat. So, still part of the load balancer group. The resource name is L director. Scroll down till you hit the L director D. And then you tell it where the config file is for the L director. And you hit add. Really?
Well, Macs have sensitive keyboards.
And this is what it'll look like once you get back to the screen and you hit play. You'll notice that our load balancer's gone green. Our VIP is correct, our VIP is green, and the load director's green. And it'll tell you. He's the failover guy, he's the running. And you know that, you can look down here and see. And we're back. Okay, who knows what Stoneth is? No. No Google.
Break your fingers.
I'll break your fingers. No one knows what Stoneth is? Shoot the other in the head. Okay, it's only my humor.
He's going crazy, bringing the other one down, essentially.
Basically what happens is if L Director 1 is sitting there running, L Director 2 is doing its HA heartbeat check, the heartbeat check comes back, doesn't come back. It's going to, the load balancer group is going to shoot one of the L directors in the head to kill it, force a reboot of it, and the other one takes over. it forces the reboot so that just in case it's actually still running, they don't fight each other for control of the virtual IP. Sorry, I thought that was funny.
Watchdog of like the cluster.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you're not talking anymore.
Sniper.
Oh, not even sniper, just standing there with a 357.
The ultra kill.
That's just a little gun though.
Yeah, I work with little guns. I'm a little guy. Generate your SSH keys, distribute those keys, and then test to verify that you can run commands without a password prompt. Very important that this works. Very important that this works. Stoneth doesn't work if that doesn't work. And it causes all kinds of interesting issues. Yeah. Make sure you activate the ATD daemon. Make sure it's running its startup on in run level 3. Then we need, once we've got those keys set up and we verified the functionality, we need to set up Stoneth. Oops, gotta go this way. So you go in, your resource ID is SSH Stoneth. Make sure you choose external SSH, and then you've got to go into the host list and you've got to put your directors in there. And you've got to do that by hand. Add that parameter. Make sure you set this to stoneth_clone. The node max is 1, and the clone max is 2. No matter how I hit it, it pops back. Once you get that done, you'll go back to the other screen, highlight the Linux HA under the configurations tab. Make sure you set the resource stickiness to infinity. No, I don't know why you do it.
And beyond.
But it's forever.
Is there a checkbox that says and beyond?
No, but there's a buzz, little buzzing sound when you do
Buzz.
check it.
It says you're mocking me, aren't you?
You do that well. I'd love to see you dressed as Buzz.
Greg, we don't talk about those persons.
So sticking is basically just means that like if it's, does it work like a round robin where it goes to one and goes to the other and goes to the other?
It depends on what you use for. I remember how Adam was talking about the WLC,
Schedule
the
equals.
scheduler, the scheduling. There's like 3 or 4 different scheduling types.
Okay.
So whichever one you pick, it's going to go through that scheduling process. I use the WLC because it's supposed to keep track of how long those things take to return.
So does that stickiness mean that like it keeps going to every next time that person logs in and runs the same server every time?
No, I think on that the Stoneth is that server, if L Director 1 and L Director 2, if he's in charge for Affinity until nothing's going to change unless he can't talk to him anymore. Then he shoots him in the head, reboots him, and then he takes over.
Okay.
That's what I understand the Infinity to be, because it's under the SSH, the Stoneth area. It's not under the HA. It's not under the L Director stuff.
When the rebooted one comes back up, does it then become the fallback node?
Yes, because when he comes up, he says,
I'm available.
I'm available. Who's in charge? And the other one says, I'm in charge. You sure? Yeah, okay.
Hang tight.
I'm just going to be here if you need me.
Okay.
Sits there, drinks the beer, and relaxes.
Is it possible to have 3 directors?
As far as I know, you're able to set up
As many as
more.
you want.
Yeah, as many as you want.
Okay.
I-
And the 2 here is just for sample.
Yeah,
But again, remember that only one is ever active at any one time.
yeah.
The other one's
That IP, that
Backup.
Virtual.
VIP is only active on the one.
How
The
do they
backup
know
solely
which one
exists to
takes
be
over
a backup.
when you
So
have
it's just
three?
it's a failover. It's
Or
not
right.
really a load balance.
Who takes over
Well,
when the master?
Load balance.
That's I don't
The
know.
load balancing happens.
Two-
They gotta
two
have a
makes sense.
priority.
The L
2
Director
makes
is
sense.
the
I got it.
They
load
gotta have a
balance and
priority.
HA is
I gotta draw anyway.
A
'cause I'm
queue
next.
or something to say who's
Yeah, there's
next
gotta be
in
something to
line,
identify.
who's the one in line behind it.
Yeah,
Got it.
I don't know. And it may be a case there that if there's 3 of them, these 2 are hitting this guy because he's in charge. First one to determine he's gone is going to grab it. This one's going to see he's gone, and I would assume he talks to he'll talk to the other ones. Are you still there? And at that point, he should say, yeah, I'm in charge. That's how I would expect it to work if you're doing more than two. But
I can see contention issues happening here because both of them say, oh, now I'm in charge at the same time.
Yeah, if they're
and then
both-
check with the other guy, and the other guy says, oh, I'm in charge.
yeah, it's
And
possible.
then they both shoot each other in the head.
That's why I say it doesn't make sense to do more than two to me.
That's why in the config, there's that very first, when you list out the hosts, the one you put in there for the first entry is basically the master. So if it's alive, the other ones will defer to it. So the
Whichever
order of
one
that is
comes up
important.
first, he takes control.
Yeah, but then if the master comes up again, it'll kick, in my experience anyway, it kicks the other one off.
Not
Well,
me.
that's the way it works on mine. 'Cause
Yeah,
if
no.
we haven't got to my part yet, but load 1 does the majority of the work on mine, load 2 just sits there.
Yeah.
If I reboot load 1, for about 15 seconds, this guy takes over everything. As soon as he comes back up, it all goes back over to load 1.
No, and that's not what I've seen
Really?
repeatedly. Is
Huh.
if he's in charge and I reboot him, he takes over. When he comes back up, he checks in with the group and says, "Hey, I'm here," and he says, "That's nice.
Huh.
I'm in charge," and he stays in charge.
That's not the way mine works. It's interesting.
Yeah, he stays in charge until he gets rebooted or you bring him down.
That could be a timeout of, there's a lot of times with the EJ configurations, there's a timeout of when you'll assume that it's master. And if load 1's coming back up quick enough, load 2 may say, I'm not master, and just transfer back over. Right, in your case, maybe set a short timeout, so load 2 says, okay, you're not there, I'm master.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, and the goal was, like I said, no more than 5 seconds.
Yeah.
No more than 5 seconds does it take to fail. And like I said, I've been hitting that IP and I'll lose one packet.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is however long it takes load 1 to come back. That
One
way,
time I had it,
however
so it
long it
shut
takes
up.
for load 1 to come back,
What
when
it
you
did.
determine your factor, as to whether or not load 2 actually stays in the master.
Yeah, he's never jumped back on any of mine.
Yeah.
Not without little finesse. But I didn't care.
Second for another one.
Yeah.
Supposed to load when you actually use load machine.
Now we get to the. I'm not going to
Adam
pretend.
correct about ours. Chad's listening.
Whatever, Chad. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I get this working on the Linux side. I don't understand with 100% the real servers and my network configs. I understand what I had to do to make it work, but I'm not going to pretend.
You have to change the loopback IF config.
Yeah.
What's that?
I'm interested to see your loopback IF config. What the heck did you have to add in there?
Or change.
So you've got to set up the VIP address.
Oh,
It's on the
that's
loopback.
right. Your VIP address is on the loopback.
Right.
And this is for your load balancing systems.
No,
It's
this
actually
is
for all of your systems.
this is on the real servers. This is on the web
So
servers.
these guys.
Yeah, your web servers down
Gotcha.
there, I had to put in this
Gotcha.
so that they knew to accept that packet,
Right.
that they could take care of the situation, but then they hand it back.
But it couldn't be on real interface because it screwed the routing, so it had to be
Bingo.
on the loopback.
So,
There you-
so this is the configuration here, and you set your net mask to 255 all the way through.
So what happens if you ping 127?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
That'll still
That should
work.
still
I mean,
work,
that's
because-
native to the protocol, right? That's not.
Yeah.
It's not like you can change 127.0.0.1 to something else.
Well, and it's in the
because
host file
it's
as well.
not defined in there doesn't mean it's not going to still work.
Yeah, it's in the
I mean, the
host file,
protocol or
but
the stack?
that'll just
Well,
say-
I mean that's the TCP/IP, right? That's
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. That's built in.
So
no
here's
matter
the
what
other.
I put in that config file, I can't work my system so bad that 127.0.0.1 won't respond to a ping unless
I have.
don't have
Yeah,
IP
you-
in memory.
you
You can
can
do
Okay,
that.
unless you're these two.
You're a
The
real
other-
idiot enough.
You really screwed
You
up.
got
bad.
track radar.
The other piece of this is you've got to turn off your ARP. You've got to turn off ARP on the real servers, so that it
Because
doesn't.
what does ARP do?
It's going to tell the MAC address.
Because it turns IPs into MAC addresses.
Right.
And you're operating basically in what we would normally consider to to be a screwed up network where you have multiple systems advertising the same IP address.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, ARP you have to get rid of ARP.
This is not an easy thing to do on Windows, by the way.
Oh.
It's a pain in the,
Petard.
yeah. So.
Pain in the Balmer.
Oh, that needs to go on the board.
The Balmer.
Balmer. Now, a key piece here is your default gateway must not be the load balancers.
not
Do
passing
not
packets back
make
out
it
of
the
it.
load balancers. It's the network gateway, because you're still replying back to that individual through your network from the real server. Don't make it the load balancer. Just don't. Don't.
So it won't work.
Well,
Well, because when I talk in a minute, you'll have to make it the gateway. That's what gets the screwy.
So okay,
Mine requires that you have it be the gateway.
at this point, you now create you can create your test HTML page on the real server, slap it in the root of your web server, and really, guys, this whether it's called test HTML was still alive or it's mine.html or mine.txt, and it's got the word crap in it. It doesn't matter. It's looking for that document that you identify with that statement in it. If it's there, it's alive and it's part of the mix. If it's not there, it's not there. Or if it returns the wrong item. Now the way you look to see if everything's working is at the command line you type IPVS ADM -LN.
That's screwed
Go
you up,
this
isn't
way.
it?
Yes, it does. And then I go here, and then I go here, and then I drag this here. So when you run it, this is what you're going to see. These are your real servers on the back end.
When you say, I'm sorry, when you say real servers, you're talking about
Web servers.
Web servers?
The web
So
servers.
there's load balancers and behind them are web servers?
They're in front of them.
That's right.
In front of them?
The load balancers sit here because you're talking to the load balancers, and then
But who's me? Am I somebody
You're
on
the
the
client.
internet? I'm the client on the internet.
you're the client talking. You're needing my web page. You're sitting way up there in the cloud.
Yeah.
You talk to the load balancer. I hand it off to the appropriate real server.
Okay.
The appropriate web server. I call them real servers. It's just what they were calling them. And this says, what kind of a wait. So they're both a 1, so they were both responding quickly. So I can hand it off. The load balancer, I can hand it off to either server. It's going to respond the same. But this tells you, like I said, you'll have your list of servers because of your config file. You'll know what servers you've got sitting out there, and you'll see which ones are actually there. If none of the servers are up, you'll see a line above these that's 127.0.0.1, and it's the only one that's going to have a route and a wait. It's the only one because it can't see anything else, so it defaults.
Is there a way for the real servers to tell the load balancer how busy they are?
That's part of what WLC.
Theoretically, a top line load balancer should distribute the load
based on the
to
workload.
keep relatively even,
right.
as
And
best as can be done.
That's what WLC is supposed to do.
Okay.
Not a single one of my websites has the traffic that
Okay.
Adams does.
You don't
Not
have
even
enough
close.
I/O to be able to tell.
But
They're
even
sitting around doing
answer your
nothing and get a single request and off it goes, it's done.
Yeah, it's handing those requests off, and it's still checking to see what kind of response it's getting from those
So like
servers.
with Yahoo Mail or with Google or something like that, they gotta have something set up because
Yeah.
they got a bazillion different servers out there all over.
But they're also using canonical names where you get the closest route.
Right. They cheat also because they use DNS as well. In
Is
addition to this.
this kind of like as far as how the directors do their balancing, is it like, is it not like CART? Like BSD's CART, is that what it is in Linux, what you're kind of doing? Where you have they both have the same IP address, but they don't really?
that virtual IP address is on a loopback. It's on that loopback interface. So the real servers, even though it's on that loopback interface, they're not responding back to it on that loopback. They're responding on their real IP address because they've got a real IP address in them for
So,
communication.
on your two director systems,
Yes.
it's only got one IP address until it's got the right IP address on this one, and this one doesn't have that IP address until something tells it this is your new IP address.
Your L directors, are going to have a real IP, and then one of them's going to have the VIP.
Okay,
Only one.
Only one. The other one's just going to have its real IP.
so what's
And it-
before it to handle that? I mean, what, like,
So
Like,
when
is
you
there-
hit 200, right? You're the client. You're trying to hit my website. You're hitting IP address 200.
okay,
Right now, in the switch, the router, sitting above here, it knows that right now that virtual IP is on this server, so this
Okay.
MAC address is tied to it.
how does it know that that virtual IP is on, how does the network know which servers that IP is on?
He's advertising it because he's responding to the ARP requests.
Okay, so if it switches, your network has to be somewhat,
The router's gonna
It re-advertises
yeah.
That what happens then, because it's the same way when mine, in my setup, is a ARP broadcast goes out,
okay?
which forces everybody on the local subnet to update their ARP table to say, hey, this IP address that I handed you before that was this MAC is now this MAC.
Does that break the connection though, if it flips over?
Like if there's an active TCP.
Right,
Yes.
okay.
So if there
So
was
it
an
breaks all active
if there was an
connections.
active TCP connection going on between this guy and this guy when that happened, when this guy goes down, yes, it breaks.
It kills all your connections.
Yes.
Okay. Does it session aware across the nodes? Like, will it kill your session?
Well, like, HTTP sessions are handled by the application, right?
Right.
So that's going to be up to whatever's running back here.
So it have to.
There's nothing natively in HTTP that is session or stateful.
It can't, the load balancers don't understand the state, in which server the incoming or the request should go to,
Well, no, because that request has to come again.
and then it just arbitrarily picks another server.
That's right. So, in my experience, I'm kind of getting ahead of Craig here. In my experience, we handle sessions back here on a shared memory segment. So it doesn't matter which box you hit. The session or stateful information is shared between.
Shared.
Yeah.
So if I had a Citrix or an application delivered by, as Citrix would deliver, Citrix is basically the high-end pay us money thing. But I had an application that I'm delivering, and I want to resume that after load one failed.
Because you're currently connected from a Citrix line here to a Citrix server on W1 running this app.
Right.
And load one dies, so you've got to make the connection again. You're wondering if that's going to reconnect you back to this guy, because I don't know the answer to that.
In my experience with that, with my portal, because this is where I've got two servers and they're session aware, but they don't share. They're not sharing that information. If he makes a connection through load one to W1, and load one goes away, he's got to relog back in.
Okay.
If this goes away, in my environment, if he goes away, this guy's aware because the way I've got him configured, I've got him going to here and it's live for like,
Picks up the next one.
well, no, unfortunately.
Oh, because the session information's gone. You're talking about Citrix, I'm sorry.
No, I'm talking about my stoneware stuff.
Oh.
This is what I'm seeing. Because he goes away, he said, hey, I'm handing this session off to him, I'm maintaining that session,
Even if W1 is down.
even if W1 goes away.
That's no bueno.
So if you were on W1, you've got to wait like, I think it was like 6 minutes or 7 minutes
Before that time's out.
for it to time out
Okay.
when he goes away. But if he goes away, my stuff keeps it real, you go back and you're fine. Because he didn't know about the sessions.
So it's
that were on
almost
here.
like you don't want the load balancer such an aware in that state.
I don't, and that's not how I've operated. But these guys down here,
That's interesting.
now if you don't run Seuss, there is another option. This is from 2004, but the reading through it, it doesn't look like anything has really changed from July 2003 and revised in 2004. Bless you. But this is another option where it's going to walk you through grabbing a kernel that you make sure has what you need in it. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, it's old, but the basics of it are the same. You still need IPVS. You still need to make sure the LVS patches are in the kernel. So this is another option. Like I said, I'll have this posted up sometime in the next couple of days. So if you want to go back to it.
That's on a 2.4 kernel.
Yeah.
What about a 3.0 kernel?
It's RC1.
Yeah. Or
So this is how I do business, and then you've got Adam. Holy crap, Seuss 9.1?
Yeah, you believe that? Sucker's old, isn't it?
wow.
Wait, I can't say anything. I've still got a Red Hat 7.1 box set.
Hey, it's got uptime past 600 days there, so it's been too loud. Okay, so the way we have this set up,
That's when we moved it across the data center.
I know, is really not a whole lot different than the way Craig is set up. I mean, from a physical standpoint, it's laid out pretty much the same. The network config is a little bit different, and we're doing some different things on the protocol side. Now, this is all based off of network address translation, which I think we're all familiar with. You got the cloud. We all do this at home, right? You got your router, you got your switch, and you've probably got, there's your little gateway box here, right? This is your DD work box or whatever, your Linux box, connected to another switch, and then you've got your Linux box sitting right here. So when a request comes in from the cloud to this guy, says, oh, port 80, forward it to this guy. And when anything connected to this switch going out gets translated right to the IP address that actually lives on the external IP right here. That's network address translation. We're doing the exact same thing here, just with, instead of one gateway system here to manage all this, it has a backup. But for all intents and purposes, it's the exact same thing that goes on in the really basic NAT setup that we've all done a million times. It's the same kind of software. It's the heartbeat setup, and it's the LDirector-D, and it's still that IPVS ADM commands to do the monitoring and viewing. Now, we actually got these packages from a website called ultramonkey.org, but you go there, it's pretty old. I mean, it hasn't been updated in probably 5 years.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons we didn't use it, but I wanted to just because of the name.
Yeah. Well, and it's all, you know, all this stuff we're talking about comes from two different websites, linux-ha.org and linuxvirtualserver.org. And you start reading some of this stuff, man, it gets really complex. It's, you know, you get, we've all been there. You want to just get to a point where it says, all right, just give me like the 10-step process I've got to do to make this work, right? No. It's, oh, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. That was the nice thing about these. It was just like, install these RPMs, edit these 3 config files, and you're off and running. So we still use these even though this is pretty old. You just compile them from source and everything works just fine. And we've got these 4 configuration files that you have to edit. So what I've drawn up here is a basic layout of the load balancing system we have in front of careerlink.com and have for quite a few years. Now I changed all the IP addresses, but this is the basic setup. We have 2 load balancing Linux boxes right here. I've actually wanted to be correct about it. Not only, you know, as you can see, they have 2 NICs here, right? One going to the outside external switch, one going to our internal switch right here. We also have one of these old guys. This is a null modem cable that connects the 2. So we actually have a serial heartbeat connection between the 2, in addition to the UDP heartbeat connection that Craig talked about. So just sort of an extra level of redundancy.
The original point-to-point.
That's right. Don't think it wasn't tough to find a null modem cable.
Oh, if you need one, call me.
I was gonna say, or just call Tom. He's got plenty of them. Or a server that has a 9-pin serial port on it.
I just bought one at Radio Shack for $20 in the middle of
There, you know what I'm talking about.
I got a box of them, literally.
It's good to know. Because, you know, again, we're striving for never a single point of failure. And these switches are potentially a single point of failure, right? So we have the load balancing, yeah, and that's still kind of the case. But
So is your gateway and your.
that's right, and this
link to the
router,
cloud.
and right. Yeah, but this is all
But the gateway is not us.
This is all co-century, so we've sort of, our disaster recovery plan at the bottom says if co-century goes down, we're all screwed anyway, so, you know, just,
Okay.
it's not gonna happen.
Well,
The city's
you have
taking a direct
separate
hit.
ISP to-
That's right, that's why I gotta talk to Tom about
When you
that.
switch to Scott Technology Center.
I don't have a serial cable that long.
If-
Come on, the whole new
Technology
plan
Center
now.
goes down, we're
That's right,
through.
yours, okay.
The whole city is screwed.
So the way, the way the request comes in, client over here is hitting careerlink.com, which resolves, for our purposes here, is gonna resolve to this IP address here. Now this is what Craig wrote up as the virtual IP address. So in my little example here, it's 1.1.1.10. Load 1 and load 2 here both have 2 physical NICs in them. We'll just ETH0 here, and ETH0. ETH0 is assigned a real IP here, 1.1.1.1, 1.1.1.2, and then this virtual IP we sort of draw here. Now at the moment, this is assigned to load 1. But if load 1 ever goes down, then that's when that whole ARP broadcast kicks in. Load 1, the heartbeat fails. Load 2 brings up this IP .10, sends out an ARP request on the local network here, and it's a broadcast. Everybody picks it up, and everybody goes, oh, okay, if I want to talk to that IP anymore, I need to talk to this MAC address. And you see I actually have 2 here, right? One for the external subnet and one for the internal subnet. So all my internal stuff here is on the 10 net. So the shared IP is 10.0.0.10. What do you think the default gateway of all of the boxes I have behind here is? It's this guy right here. It's 10.0.0.10. This, for right now, because this is up, this guy right here is the default gateway and NAT box for every server behind it.
You had him.
I had him.
Should have squeezed.
Could I change the default gateway on W1 to 10.0.0.1 and everything can still work? Sure. But then I miss out the whole point of load balancing, right?
Yeah.
Load 1 goes away, dot 1 is nowhere to be found, and he doesn't have a connection network, right? So yeah, it's got to be this guy. So this is sort of the basic
So
setup.
both sides are going to be doing the whoop whoop.
Yeah, that's right. So really, I mean, I really sort of have to put a 5th config file in here. It's your IP tables config. It's your standard firewall rule set that sets up the NAT stuff that we know and love so much here. And it's really, I mean, it's really pretty basic. You turn on the forwarding, you say, you know, do the NAT here. If the big difference between these two, if you've ever done port forwarding on the Linux side from like a single setup like this, you're familiar with that -SNAT designation to IP tables. The big difference here is you're not actually having IP tables do the port forwarding for you here. It's still doing the outbound rewrite, right? Because replies, so my client's going to end up talking to W1 essentially, right? A reply is going to go back out here and it's going to have to get natted back to the real IP, which in this case is .10, so the client accepts the reply. In our normal setup here, it would be IP tables that's doing that. Here, it's not. It's actually the LDirector-D software that's doing that for us. So when you're migrating, if you want to set this up, I recommend you actually get it working just with one box in a normal NAT setup. Make sure this guy, all of these, can talk to the internet through him. The forwarding is working, the natting is working, right? You got to have that working first. Then you can put a second box in place, connect your serial cable, bring up the IPs, and convert your forwarding rules over to the LDirector-D setup. So, can I,
Yeah. This should be
Needs a
fun.
terminal.
I do indeed need a
It's
terminal.
at the bottom.
I see it. I see it right there.
You're gonna have fun. You gotta drag it over to the other side.
Oh, that's right, I do, don't I? Whoops.
It's a Mac. You can't double click. Holy crap!
What did I just do?
Stop.
Start
Stop.
it again.
There you go.
That's bad.
Jeez. Show
Sorry.
all my porn.
It's been a while. All right.
Keep
Can I make the
going. Keep
font?
going.
Holy
Keep
shit,
going.
it is a
No,
little
no,
big.
keep coming.
Well, I want to make it a little
That's-
smaller,
It's okay. You
Craig.
kick the plus and it'll size it.
All right,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Of course not. Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Now make the font bigger.
It's a Mac.
I think it should be that.
No.
I think it should be that.
It's an Elefino.
I don't know how to make the phone bigger.
Up here.
Up here. What? Oh. All right.
See if that. It's Apple.
Oh, it's Apple Plus.
So Apple Plus.
That was close. There we go. It's a little bit better.
Zoom.
He's a Zoomy.
Oh, that's a funky little thing here.
Hey, it is QWERTY.
My password's all blank. Did you see that? Okay, so I also have an HA.D directory. Let's actually look at the ifconfig here for a minute.
Okay, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's hurt my neck too.
Hey, watch your foot.
All right, let's actually. I'm going to do some real IPs here, so you can actually see what this looks like. So we're not jumping back and forth here. So this is, I'm on essentially load 1 here. ETH0 is my outside NIC, and the real IP for this guy is 216, 58,
225,
225,
52.
52. We actually have a number of virtual IPs. There's actually 10, well 11 because we start with 0, right? 11 virtual IPs on this guy. But let's just stick with one for now, .53. That's actually the IP that careerlink.com resolves to. So that's an example of one of the virtual IPs. You can have, as you can see here, as many as you want that live in this little cloud here. Okay, load 2 is 216, 58, 225. I'm not even 100% sure. Let's say 51. But all we really care about is .53. So when you're doing your network config, you make sure your real IP is the actual IP on this guy, because that's what the ifconfig tool brings up. That's what your, etsyrc.d or etsyinit.d network brings up. Now, normally, if you looked at this from a normal Linux box, you would say, oh, okay, these were all, there should be default entries in.
Config files for all those.
Right, config files for all these, right? There aren't, because it's the LDirector tool that actually brings these up. If I stop the LDirector D service on this guy right now, all of these virtual IPs will disappear. It will, only this one will be remaining. I bring it back up, they all come back. So it's a little bit different from a network setup than you're used to, because it's not the normal IP table stuff. It does that for you. We got a lot of virtual IPs here. Okay, I'm getting past ETH0. Let's get to ETH1. Okay, ETH1, there's my real IP here. Our internal subnet is 192.168.23.250. The virtual IP here is 23.1. So again, as you can guess, all the guys down here are 192.168.23 dot something, say 21. And with a default gateway of what?
.1.
Right, 23.1 is the default gateway. It's got to be that virtual IP here, so this can get handed back and forth between load 1 and load 2.
It's like a double NAT with a virtual IP.
Looks like a what?
It's a double NAT with a virtual IP.
Well, it's not double NAT. It's just single NAT, because it gets natted. Remember, the gateway is here, so it gets handed here, and then it gets natted to 53. And when it goes out here, so if I were to grab a packet on this line right here, the source from here to here, the source IP would be 53.
Yeah.
Right? Grab a packet coming in, destined for it, it's destined for 53. So it's the normal NAT. The only difference here is that these are really, I mean, from what I've seen so far, there's nothing different than the normal NAT setup here. I just happen to have them set up as aliases, which Linux doesn't care, right? Okay, but how they're set up is a little bit different. Control L, okay. So we saw Craig's auth keys file. We saw the ha.cf file. I'll look at that quick. Most of this is just comments. Stuff we care about is at the bottom. Let's see, what do we care about? This stuff all supports Stoneth. I don't have any of that turned on. Hold on, let me find stuff that we care about here. Okay, so there's a here's the heartbeat stuff, unicast on ETH1. Talk to 23.251. That's the real IP over here. 192.168.23.250. 23.251. And I even have something above here.
Port.
There's the port. Here we go. There's my no modem. It's on dev TTYS 0, and it's baud rate of 19200. So I actually have both of those
What
going
is
on.
hop fudge?
Cousin of hot fudge.
No idea. Maximum hop count minus 192 config. If I had to guess, I would say, well, I remember when I read this years ago, one of the reasons for having...
It's the fudge factor for the number of hops.
Yeah, because this whole thing is based on timeouts. If you're doing a heartbeat between two systems, you don't want any timeouts, right? Because a timeout means the other guy's dead. Well, you could theoretically set this up so there's actually multiple hops between these systems. And you don't want some network latency issue to crop up where this guy says, oh, I didn't get a response back from him in 1.2 seconds. He must be dead. When it's really just because somebody in here is, downloading a giant ISO file or something's killing the link. So I would guess that that's how you can tweak that.
Well, that, and it looks like just reading that comment, like you have more than one load balancer in there. I mean, you might have 5 load balancers, you might have 5 nodes in your load balance.
Minus the number of nodes in the config. Yeah, you're right.
So if you had, 5 nodes.
That's why yours is different.
Why?
Auto failback is on.
Default is off, which means that it will fail back to the node which is declared as primary in HA resources. On means that resources only move to new nodes
If you
when the
comment
nodes
that
they
one
are
line
served
out,
on die. This is deemed as next behavior. There you go.
You comment that one line, it's going to act like Craig's does.
Yep. Well, God, we don't want that. I want mine to work.
I'll show you a stoneth.
That's what she said. Okay, and it's hard to tell, but these last 3 lines are uncommented. Again, this is saying what we're actually pinging for the heartbeat stuff, and then we don't really use this. The whole point of this is what script do you want to run when heartbeat says that this guy's dead? So theoretically, I could have all these services running on this box right here, and this guy's just a backup. Say I got like SQL running on this guy. If he dies, I want SQL to come up on this guy. So I can put that in the script. I can put all kinds of fun stuff in this script. We sort of cheat, and we don't do that. The only things these guys do is LDirector and DNS. And they're already both set up running DNS. That's our primary and our secondary. So it doesn't really matter if one goes down. I'm not restarting any services. So we've never used that aspect of it, but it's available. I've done that in some other configs, but not on this network. Okay, so we're going to go to the conf directory. Let's look at the LDirector d.cf. This doesn't look a whole lot different than Craig's. Timeout, interval timeout, auto reload. Okay, and here's the first entry for .53, which is career link port 80. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 web servers. I should write W6, 5, 6, 7, 8 out here. Serving careerlink.com. It is an HTTP service. We have that internal test page, and I don't notice that I don't have that. I don't remember what it was called. Looking for that little phrase. We don't do that checking here. We actually do that checking another way.
Okay.
Here's the scheduler. That's the weighted round robin scheduler. And to get back to your question, how intelligent is this with regards to what's going on in these boxes? Not as good as it could be. Ideally, you would have some sort of a client software running on this guy that could communicate back to the load balancer to say, hey, I'm pretty busy, leave me alone, right? It doesn't. It's all from this side. So it keeps a table of how many active connections there are on each guy, and it assumes that that equates the load on the box. That's really the biggest complaint I have about this system that we've struggled with at times, is for whatever reason, and I know, hi Chad, you're probably listening, you can back me up on this. Whatever reason, we have some web servers go wonky sometimes, and the load will just spike. The redirector doesn't know that. Yeah. It just knows that it's only got 5 active connections, so by God, it's going to get the next 50 people that come in, right? And I wish it was a little more intelligent with regards to that. The only thing we can do right now is just take it out of we comment it out of here, so it stops sending new connections to it. We let them time out. We reboot the box. It's still too manual. It should be a little more automatic, but it's not.
Needs to be a way to have, it wouldn't be much of a program to check your current CPU usage,
Right. Just some I/O stuff, right?
And possibly disk I/O, because you
Yeah.
might
You'd
be
be just checking
stuck in
VMIO.
disk I/O or waiting for
Right.
SQL on your SQL server or something like that. You might have 12 clients that are all sitting there in a wait state,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that machine.
It could be as simple as you run a Nagios on another box, and you could use that, because Nagios is already gonna pull that
He's already
information.
doing that, yeah.
So you could pull
Yeah.
it from the Nagios box.
So the big difference here between mine and Craig's is that I have, his said gate here, mine said mask, so this is masquerading. Notice that you don't have to have the ports matching here. When somebody comes in on 443, I'm actually passing them off to 446 on these internal boxes here. It doesn't matter to the outside world, it looks like 443. So
It's all NAT.
since it's all NAT, right, it just gets NATed back out. Just like we all know NAT to work, and I got a ton of them in here, they all pretty much look the same. It's just different IPs and different ports. We got 10 different IPs on here. But it all pretty much looks the same. Oh, here we go. Yeah, thank you. HA Resources. This, now I'm going to bring this up a little bit. This is formatted kind of funky. But this is where you actually define the virtual IPs, the VIPs. This is not in your normal etc sysconfig network-scripts directory. This isn't the little setup program that comes with Fedora, right? This is where you define them. So you say, I'm going to set up 216.58.225.55 on ETH0 with a subnet mask of /26. This is where you're defining all of these individual IPs. So that's probably the biggest thing to get past if you're new to this. You don't configure your virtual IPs the normal virtual IP way. You do it through the LDirector config file right here.
Is LDirector IPv6?
Yes,
aware of that?
has been since 08. Okay, one last thing to look at is that IPVS ADM utility that Craig showed. We're going to pipe that guy through more. This gives a report of what the current connections are. Oh, yeah, okay. This formatting is a little funky, but let's just look at one of them down here. Let's go down to one that we know has some traffic. So here, there's some pretty big numbers. So this is careerlink.com right now. In fact, hold on, let me rerun that command with a different.
The watch should be.
I want to do dash, and I want to do name resolution. Oh, come on.
Just Control R and watch.
Oh,
There you
list numeric. Okay. All right, so
go.
this
Oh, I
will
guess
update.
you can't scroll very well on it.
This will update every 5 seconds. Yeah. Okay. Bear with me here, people. IPVS ADM list numeric, and we'll pipe that through more. Okay. So the section I'm going to put at the top. This is for .53 port 80, which is CareerLink, weighted round robin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 web servers. These are current. This is the service masquerading, whether it's online or not. Current active connections, current inactive connections. Why is there such a huge discrepancy between these two numbers?
Because
Session.
when,
Unstable, so it's got the numbers on the clear state.
That's right. TCP state, right? There's a default timeout that the kernel will keep a TCP connection open. It's got to go through that fin and fin wait. And I don't even know what the default is. But these are ones that are considered in active state right now. These are inactive. This is pretty normal. We average about, I don't know. I don't think
for
I've.
this time of day.
Yeah, I know. I don't think I ever see any of these go over about 250, even during peak times. And really, that's the beauty of this. I mean, that's one of the whole points of doing the load balancing thing, is not just for redundancy and uptime, but the fact that it's given us the ability to scale this service horizontally as opposed to just vertically. It's not just buying faster boxes, more memory. It's just adding another box in the list. Now, if I really wanted to draw this correctly, I would have to add these two boxes in place. The file server and the database server. Because these guys are just actually web front ends. All they're doing is running Apache. They're serving all of the CareerLink file content, of which there isn't a whole heck of a lot because it's mostly for a database, off of a file server right here. And of course this guy has its own backup as well. just as this guy has its own backup as well. Again, we're trying to achieve as close to no single points of failure as possible. So we can, it's very easy for us to scale this horizontally because we're serving all of this content off this one file server. And again, we were talking about sessions before. Curlink is a PHP-based application which uses PHP session variables to maintain state, and they're stored on disk. So they're just stored on a shared drive on this guy. So it doesn't matter which front end you hit. Your session is automatically replicated across them because it's stored on disk. There's other ways to do it. You can do it with cookies. You can do it with get variables, whatever. At the moment, we're doing it on a shared disk on this system here. And of course, we're all hitting one database server, so it doesn't really matter which front end you get to. And our big and then you start looking at what your bottlenecks are. Your bottlenecks become disk activity on the file server, memory and CPU on the database server, and network connectivity between the whole thing. We currently have just 100 meg between these guys right now. We're contemplating moving this to a gigabit across the backplane just to limit possible possible slowdowns there. But it hasn't been much of an issue.
Do you have any data when your peak usage times on how saturated you
Oh
are?
yeah, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. That's been pretty consistent for the last decade. We have a lot of theories around that. We think that
Oh, it's Mondays mostly.
Oh no, it's Tuesdays and
Tuesdays and
Wednesdays.
Wednesdays.
Now here's my theory on that. People get back to work on Monday and they're putting out all the fires that came up over the
Tuesday.
weekend, right?
Ah.
Tuesday, they're sitting there. They're going to watch. It's about lunchtime. They're like,
Get the
God, I
hell
hate
out
my
of this
freaking
joint."
job. Where else can I get a job? And they go to Curlink and they start looking. And I swear, those
graphs show
numbers
it.
have been the same for a decade. It is just.
How many places have meetings on Mondays?
Oh
what
yeah.
time are your meetings at?
That's a good point.
At 10 o'clock, you get done with the meeting, you go to lunch, you get done with lunch, and now you got to get your work done.
That's right.
Tuesday, you don't have meetings, and you're saying, that meeting sucked, I'm out of here.
And if you did a 24-hour graph with this being noon, with this being midnight and 12, and midnight again, then it pretty much goes like this. Let's see, I got to draw this right here. It goes down here, and then here, and then down. So there's a little bit of traffic after midnight, then it goes down, people are asleep, people are getting to work, going to lunch, coming back up, and then the drive home is always a dip, then they're back on at night when they get home, and then they go to sleep. And that histogram has been the same for the 12 years I've been at it. It's been exactly the same. So yes, we do have some, we watch this pretty closely with regards to where our bottlenecks are, and really that's been a thing that we've actually been fighting quite a bit the last couple months. And just anybody that manages websites knows this. There's just so damn many variables involved in doing this. It's so hard to figure out exactly where the bottleneck is, right? Am I going to solve all my problems by throwing more RAM at this guy, or do I need a faster disk here? Do I, have a dodgy network cable here or something?
I thought we did some pretty ingenious.
Yeah, I know. I'm always looking for that silver bullet. Oh, I just changed this one thing. Yes, it's so much better.
Well, there was a lot of nice little things that.
Yes, we did a lot of little things and we made it a lot better. But really, consistently over the last, we've been doing this for, 7, 8 years. Consistently, what we've been able to do in order to run, a pretty heavily hit website, we get, 400,000 user sessions a week or something. We get a lot of traffic. Is the ability to scale this horizontally. We've gone from 2 web servers to 4 to 6 to 8, and it makes it very, very easy to just drop another one in place. And these aren't super beefy boxes. These are almost what I would consider desktop level machines. Really, they got 2 gig of RAM. They're like dual core.
No, they're like 4.
Okay, but still, nothing. It's not like some
Desktop.
super giant Mongo,
There's Zen.
IBM box here. But still, we're talking about what, $1,000, maybe $1,200 or $1,300 a box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, running free software.
They're all like one use.
They're all one use, yeah, with a load balancer in between. And we can just sort of keep scaling. Now, of course, we're going to start running into bottlenecks here, network. We can't do this to infinity. But for the last couple of years, this has served us really well. And it's been pretty easy to do.
So how many
Let's go back to
boxes
slides.
total does Curlink have in that? You've got that file server and its backup, which automatically means
We have 8 web servers, we have 2 file servers, we have 2 database servers, we have 2 load balancers, we have 2 mail servers. That's it out there.
Oh, there's the other half of the curly cap demons do half.
Oh, well, yeah. Remember,
pretty
these
much
are all
the same.
VMs too. I mean, each one of these is split into 2 boxes essentially, so that's a whole
You have
different
one
story.
database box, is that really the?
We have 2, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, it's set up the same. We just do a hot. We're only ever hitting one database box. It's the beefiest box. We don't do any kind of like
Typically, it
a
needs to be
balancing between that. That's sort of our next step. We haven't needed to. We don't hit the database a ton. I mean, when you do queries, it does, but not on every page though.
Do you max out the RAM in your database? I mean, is the RAM pretty much all used by the database server?
Well, you know, Linux, it's going to say it's using all the memory no matter how much you
It's
give it, right?
shared. We're
We've
all
got,
happy
what do
for
we
it.
have, 16 gig in there at the moment, and
Yeah.
we're going to bump it up to 32 here. Is MySQL consuming all that? No. Does the operating system say it's all allocated? Sure, that's the way Linux works, right?
It's all cache.
Yeah. So, do we have, you know, what's
Is
our
there a
bottleneck on that
command-
guy? Really, it's CPU.
Is there a command that'll strip out the cache from the memory
Free.
usage?
Say that again. Is there a command that will strip out?
the cache from the memory usage?
So just show what's being.
What's actually there
Free.
now?
Yeah, the
Is it
free
just
command. Yeah, the free command will tell you that. Oopsie.
Better click here.
Oh, I'm out of that window. All right.
Yeah.
Now this isn't the database box, but total used free, and then how much is
I think that's in kilobytes.
yeah. So really, I'm only using what? I'm only using 217 meg. Oh, these are
Okay.
yeah.
That's
And
a new
again,
line.
that's kind of the other thing that's cool about this. These front end boxes here, they have a whopping 512 meg of RAM in them.
Yeah, mine's got a gig.
Yeah. Woo! And they are P4, 3 gigahertz.
Ooh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, your laptop probably kicks these guys, right?
Not mine.
But who cares? All right, not yours.
It's hyper threading.
But
I haven't bought a computer in 8 years now.
but this guy's been up for almost 700 days, and the load is consistently nothing.
0.
Nothing, zip, nada. I should go back to my slides. Huh?
Just click on the slide there at the top.
Thank you.
Yeah, what is a better, to get a better idea of how many network connections it's currently handling? I mean, does it show up in NetStat?
Yeah.
So I notice a lot of things don't show up in NetStat.
Oh yeah.
When you're on a DD Word box, or you're on the one, I don't remember how I found that before.
Well, let's see. That's
Is this is on one of the load balancers?
Yeah, this is on the load balancer. Let's just do TCP, and let's grep that for listen. Let's see what connections we've got, right? Did I do that right? Oh no, I should have done listen. Sorry, should have done listen. That just shows what's active. Here, you want to see what's here's what's active. So yeah, here's all the connections we currently have.
Yeah, so if you did this on a DD Word box, you're going to see all these NAT sessions.
Well, but
I see what you're saying. One issue about this is notice that it's only giving me the internal IPs. It's not giving me the real IPs that are connected.
because it's after the masquerade on the.
It's post masquerade, right? Let's run that IPVS ADM command again. Yeah, and that just totals it up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess you're right, Rob, is that in that I can't, right now, the way we have this set up, I can't get a list of all of the IP addresses that are currently have those active connections to our web server because NetStat tells me that it's all
But
netted, right?
you wrote a test for that.
I did?
Well, the Apache report that says X number of connections.
Oh, yeah. And actually, I wrote this script a long time ago that formats that IPVS ADM output a little bit nicer. So I can see exactly what's going on each web server, for example. So like 23.11 is actually RW1. So I can see that right now it has 152 port 80 connections. Now we know from that IPVS ADM that that's a little inaccurate because that's a combination of active and inactive. I probably need to update that. But it tells me basically what's going on here, so I can run this and I can say, oh my God, why is this one server so, loaded down or whatever.
Fix them all up.
You can tell that this guy is our mail server. It's currently got 152 port 25 connections. We got a crap load of email. Okay, let's go back here. Okay. This where we're. Yep. Okay. So there's config files. Client config. This is one of the best. And in talking to Craig about this, when he was first explaining to me how he did his, this was kind of the big thing that you struggled with was the client config stuff, right?
Yeah.
The beauty of this is the only thing you've got to make sure is configured on the client is that your default gateway is the virtual IP address here. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. It's client agnostic.
It's normal setup.
Nothing else you need to change. It's sort of, I mean, you got yours working. It sort of feels like yours is kind of like a bastardization of the way TCP/IP is supposed to work. You know what I mean, though?
Yeah.
Because the requests come in to one box and they go out from another box, and that's, you know, it's not really supposed to work
What
that way.
about the back?
It works.
It did make me
How's it
uncomfortable.
working like that? Something like FTP or something where you have to have,
Good
Oh,
question.
man.
Where you've got like
Oh.
that data connection. Yeah.
Right.
Well, okay. I think then you have to fall back on the IP tables support.
The modules. that
Which,
you
if
have
you
to
remember,
load.
if you've ever set up NAT, if you've ever set up FTP through NAT, either outbound or inbound on IP tables, there's a special IP tables module you have to load that's specific for FTP to maintain that stateful connection. That, which port is it? 20 or 21? I can't remember.
Well,
That
20 is the
one.
data and
20
and
20
the control.
Okay, whichever one's the data requires. Oh, I can't remember. Okay. No other client config needed, so it's pretty simple.
What about SSL?
We handle it exactly the same, no different.
So all of the certificates and all those boxes?
Oh yeah, we make sure that yes, make sure the certificates are exactly the same.
And
They're
would
all
have the
served.
virtual. that
We
dot
mirror the
50
configs across all the servers. as
Oh
much as
yes,
possible.
yes. These
They're not-
boxes are essentially exact copies of each other. The Apache config is exactly the same across each one. The NFS mounts are exactly the same. The certificate files are exactly the same.
Application has to know where some of those files are too, so it has to know which directory you need to get.
Because remember all the content that we're serving is actually NFS from this guy. So it's all shared directories. So if for whatever reason you have a developer writes an application that is going to write to a directory, it doesn't matter which guy it runs on because they all have the same directory structure. It's all shared disk. Yeah, it's through NFS, which sucks, but
I mean,
that's what we're doing.
can you tell us more
I
about
can't come up with anything better at the moment. That's not super expensive.
So,
So we use
each one
NFS.
of those web servers is, as far as it's concerned, as far as the web server itself is concerned, is the only one serving up data.
Exactly. They are all silos unto themselves. They have no idea the other ones exist at all. There's no connection between them at all. It doesn't need to be, right? One dies, we don't care. It's a load balancer's job to take that out of the list.
And the only thing different on each one of those servers is the real IP address and
And the host name.
and maybe some logs.
Well, yeah. That's right.
Yeah, they
And
have
the
to
logs.
keep their own individual.
Keep their own logs, right. So for Apache logs, at the end of the day, we combine them all. We have a process that runs, it goes out to each one of the 8 servers, grabs the Apache log, we have a big process that combines them all, sorts it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that's right. How do we monitor this? I mean, it's all set up to log through syslog. You can see, I mean, I'm not going to do it right now, but if I rebooted that one box, you would see it dumps a ton of stuff to varlog mesh, just saying heartbeat failover, you know.
Pages and
We saw the IPVS ADM, and then ifconfig to see the IP information. You know, pretty simple. Ultramonkey.org is where we got the packages to do this. Again, it's just a nice little package of heartbeat. The RPMs are called IPVS ADM, heartbeat, and heartbeat-L director D. And yeah, they're old, but we just downloaded the source RPMs and compiled them. And I you know, you say, oh, this only works on SUSE 9.1. I actually have done this on CentOS 5.4. So I did the exact same setup, literally copied the config files and it worked. Just recompiled the RPMs and it worked.
With source code, you
just fine.
should be able to get it work on just about
Exactly.
anything.
Exactly.
That's why you need source.
well, I know that SUSE 11 didn't happen.
Well, that's Novell's fault. We're going to go ahead and
Because
blame
it's
Novell
missing
for that.
something in the kernel, though.
Yeah, but you're right. If I probably would have recompiled the kernel, I probably could have done it.
Well, sure, if you go your own way.
It's missing
Yeah.
that. It's missing that.
It might take a
package.
while to find out which little configurations that you've got to put a check mark.
Well,
in
if
to get
you
it to work.
compare the .configs between the two kernels, you should be able to figure it out pretty quick.
Yeah. There'll be so many differences. You do a diff on them, that it's going to take a while
No, I
to
want a web browser.
sift through to find out what's what, though.
Yeah, where's that .config file? You have to get the source from the kernel?
What
Or,
good thing is
Yeah.
or is it built?
In
is it
in
under
Red
slash
in
proc?
CentOS and
You
Red
won't
Hat,
know
it's
no
like in
matter what.
configs. It's a separate folder, and you got to choose which one based upon the type. It's like 64.
Further reading,
686.
the Linux-HA project talks about this stuff. We didn't go into the details of a lot of this. What kills me about this is that it's sort of got every year they change the name of some of these things. So it's not called IPVS ADM anymore. Now it's like cluster glue or I don't know. It's all these wacky names. I actually had better luck with the Linux virtual site. Although this is almost too much information. This is, you go to documentation, this is sort of like your junk, this is your junk drawer of documentation right here. And, I mean, it's great stuff. You will learn a ton reading through this. Oh, we didn't talk about, the one thing I didn't talk about was the whole ARP thing. And you can see that happen if you watch the ARP tables. If you have this set up, I forgot to check the OLUG site for this. I did a presentation on this probably 3 years ago. Joe, you remember this, because you took the boxes home with you after I was done. You remember that? It was when we were in the other lab. I set up 2 old crappy boxes that I found, old compact systems with 2 NICs in them apiece, and I replicated a mini version of this setup right here. And we tested it, and it worked. And I remember at the time being logged into this box when he dropped this guy and doing an ARP and watching these ARP tables
someone
update.
had the same question.
Right, because it sends out, because that's the big, and you guys have probably run into that before. You've got a box on the network and you take it down. It takes your switch a while to figure out that, hey, this guy is down. You bring it back up, or bring the IP up on a new box. You either got to manually clear the cache, got to wait for a timeout to happen. So rather than have to wait for the timeouts, that's what the ARP broadcast is for, saying, hey, update your address book. It's this MAC
That way
address
all
now.
of your users out there aren't sitting.
Right, waiting for some stupid timeout to happen. How I wish it worked a little bit better. I wish there was a little more feedback on the client side. So when there's I wish it was a little more intelligent on the round robin stuff.
Yeah, but the only way that would really be useful is if you had the resources to fire up more. Say I need another couple of web servers, then you have standby boxes.
Well,
yeah, but we're still in a
there's that,
situation
but
where the load gets high on one box and our load balancer doesn't know it.
Just the
That's
random
true, that's
nature,
true.
you get 5 users that are all doing a massive search on one box. And
It
you
doesn't
get
have to be a user; it can be a bot.
Yeah.
whatever.
We seem to have some sort of strange, for whatever reason, one of these boxes, even though they are all exactly the same, one of these boxes tends to get loaded up higher than others. I don't know if that's a...
Well, when was the last time this happened? I mean, I don't remember.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's been a couple months.
I mean,
But that happened consistently for a long time.
Right.
With the same box each time.
Yeah, every time.
But we're not.
So you make it
This
seem like there's
doesn't
something
make
wrong with
any
that box,
sense,
right?
But
You
is
mean the
it plugged
canary
into
box?
port 1 on the
It's the
switch?
canary box.
Is it plugged into port 1 on the
Oh, I
switch?
don't know. Chad, is Webble 1 plugged into port 1 on the switch at CoCentry? I don't know.
Just,
I don't know.
It's
I
one
always
of
sort of
those
blame,
odd
I
things
always
that
blamed it
always
on the
come-
load balancer because it was number 1. It was always number 1 on the list. So I thought I'd be smart and I moved to the end. I didn't do it anyway. So, I don't know. I wish it was a little more intelligent there. And maybe, honestly, we haven't changed this config in a number of years. So maybe there are some new options that exist out there. Craig kind of cracked this open a couple months ago, wanted to do this, and it made me kind of revisit how we did all this, and he made it work. That's the nice thing about Craig, man. He will figure it out and make it work. No? Chad
No.
says no. All right. So apparently no.
Yeah, but like automatically fire from another virtual and add speed to the list.
Yeah, you can think of all kinds of fun stuff you could do with it, right? And again, we haven't really scratched the surface of the kind of things you can do, like that one script that runs when the fail happens. Say you've got applications running here, you can do all kinds of fun stuff there. I wish it was better about maintaining state, like you said. I mean, I know for a fact that's a feature of some of the higher end commercial load balancers, is that they're aware of those. They will actually, you won't lose your TCP state between fails. So if this is currently in a state of, fin weight 2 or whatever, it's going to get copied over to the new one when it happens. I know that doesn't happen here. It just kills it, and you have to start again. But other than that, it's worked out for us really well. And the biggest thing is just sort of getting past the config. So yeah, if you want to do the whole routing thing, if you don't want to do NAT for whatever reason, then Craig's config route works. My favorite thing about this is it doesn't require anything on the back end. And from an implementation standpoint, especially if you're in a larger company where you're the network guy and you need a load balance for the application server back here, and you don't have access to the application server back here, this is probably your best bet because it doesn't require you to touch the client stuff at all. You just put it in front of it and it works.
Either that or you just configure the network. And
What do you mean?
Give it the address, gateway, DNS.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you'd have to configure the network so it routes correctly, but you know, you don't have to do the local host stuff. You don't have to do the loopback stuff like Greg had to do. You know, everything weird. It's just a stock setup with the OS, point to the gateway. As far as it's concerned, everything works just normal.
They set up the DHCP properly, and assuming.
Well, that's true. It should be easy, right?
Application servers.
Theoretically, it should be easy. Set up right. We don't know how often that happens. Over to you, John.
In theory, there's no difference between theory and practice. In practice, there is.
There isn't. I like that. There isn't.
Okay, thanks to Craig and Adam.
Yes.
Yeah, let's see. As we heard earlier, the Linux kernel 3.0 release candidate 1 is now out and available.
To not a whole lot of fanfare.
The next 20 years, well, you know, it's always a mailing list post.
Yeah.
Next 10 years we'll be on 3.
We'll be on 3 for the next 10 years. Well, 2 was 15 years.
I don't think that's true.
If you think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, 2.6 is what, 2003?
I remember.
I checked Unix family tree.
Yeah.
I remember the switch from 1 point something to 2 happened about the time I started using Linux.
My first was Yggdrasil 0.99.
I did install that one time. That was a floppy
I was
disk
going through a
install.
box the other day and I found a stack of like 50 floppies with Slackware on it. Original release.
Ah, we gotta tell Bob Dunn.
Fantastic.
Bob's a big Slackware person.
1996 was version 2 of Linux.
Tom, you still have that DNS server that was running BSD that had an uptime of like 10 years?
Yes.
Gotta love BSD.
That's awesome.
We have a box that's running FreeBSD 2 point something. I didn't want to change it.
Works, don't screw with it.
Hey, it's
Yeah.
running a Pentium Pro.
Wow.
Awesome.
So
The
what,
monster,
166?
the monster chip.
Yeah.
No, P Pros were 200 and 233 if I remember right.
I've still got.
Yes, they were
in
gold.
my
That's
back
right. And they were
room
giant. They were like
a
that big,
Pentium
right?
100 and a Pentium
I have some of that too
133.
because I
There are
actually
still
have
people who
boxes that are
swear by
like-
those Pentium Pros. That,
No, this-
that they
this
went
is
backwards
Pentium
when they went
Pro.
above it for Pentium 2.
Yeah. Well, the Pentium 2 sucked.
Well, you can have.
It did.
more than the desktop.
I've got 2 boxes that are just regular.
No, I saw that.
But I've got a Pentium 100 and a Pentium 133. One of them I had to scavenge some parts out for power supply this winter when all of a sudden the power supply fan started going nuts and then it screeched to a halt and it's like, uh-oh, I need a power supply fan. Where can I get one of those at 3:30 in the morning? In the back room. In the back room, and I pulled it out and yanked the power supply fan out and soldered it into the other one and went back to bed.
Any new faces here this month? Have you? Yes, I have 2 flavors for you. Yes, I have an Ubuntu
Strawberry?
and a Fedora.
John's a candyman.
Okay.
Question on Fedora.
I'd like to welcome a new face, Tom Fritz, a new old
Yes.
face. Tom's been around the Omaha internet scene for
I tested it in
long
Ubuntu
time.
16 years.
16 years. Runs Novia Internetworking here in Omaha. One of the last small ISPs.
We're the last.
The last small
An
ISP.
install box, but you can just say.
On
smart.
100 and something in L Street still?
I think no, we're back at 72nd.
Oh, you are? Oh, you're back. Oh, that's the opposite now. Okay, back on in the west.
I work from home.
West Teleservice.
Thank God for asterisks. That's all I
Suppose I
gotta
should have
say.
asked you earlier, you didn't have to.
Can I hire you as an
If you want
asterisk
to.
consultant to build us a new phone system?
Me? You know, somebody might be interested.
Somebody. I'm serious. I need some
Sure.
help on that.
All right.
Linda still working for you?
Linda's in jail.
Whoops.
Whoops.
I gotta hear that story.
No, you don't.
Okay.
I'll tell you.
That's too bad. That's too bad.
She was
actually,
so nice to
I
my
like Linda.
grandmother over the phone.
like
No,
that.
she got out. Yeah, everybody said that. She was wonderful until we found out she embezzled $250,000 from her.
Oh, come on.
That's That's why she was so nice. Oh, she'd never do that. She's so nice.
Oh, dude, I'm sorry, that sucks.
That's right. 18 months in federal prison.
Wow.
Did she have gambling issues?
She had some kind of issue.
It's either that or drugs.
Wasn't drugs.
Right.
George,
Yes.
you're talking next month.
Yes, I am.
What are you talking about, George?
You should be here because
Asterisk. What? Emacs work mode. Oh.
I'm sorry?
Emacs.
Emacs.
I think I'll pass.
org mode.
Guess who doesn't need to come in the heat
Oh,
of July?
come on.
What the hell?
Why are we
I'm never
hiding
going to
you-
use Emacs in my life. I tried it once. It stunk up the whole place.
Oh.
Look, the heckling has started and it's still a month out. Why are we hiding in the alley from that crowd, Dad? 'Cause they use
The only
Emacs, son.
people that I know that like Emacs
Come
are
on.
list programmers.
Only person I know that
That's
likes it
awesome.
is Dave Rosser.
Yeah.
Dave who?
Dave Rosser. The only one I ever knew that.
What is, give me a 30-second version of what is org mode.
Org mode is everything in the kitchen sink.
That's, dude, that's all of
That's
these.
Emacs.
It started off as an enhancement to the outliner mode, and then became a to-do list organizer mode, and then became a whole
And now it's web
publishing
server.
system.
And now it's an operating system.
Yeah, you can do publishing all
It's
the way-
like the original Myth
and you
TV.
can generate code, you can generate code with it, you can.
It's a salad
do
dressing
spreadsheets in
and a
it.
floor cleaner.
You can actually link between, our mail, news, web browser, IRC
Take care.
chat,
Very cool.
throw everything at it.
Well,
and
nobody reads news in a command line
link all the
anymore.
way through.
You have a few customers who would beg to
But
differ with that.
speaking of news, anybody notice on groups.google.com a lot, they're closing up? Maybe they're moving to a new system, but all the old news you won't be able to get after August or something?
Did you hear
You
about
wanna make a pitch for
the?
your company there, Tom? No.
What?
Did you hear about the replay of Usenet?
I don't know what that means.
They're going back to the
I heard
beginning,
that one.
and they're redistributing Usenet from the I don't remember the
There's
exact
a
date.
couple providers over in Europe that now have, I don't know how many freaking petabytes
But
of
essentially,
storage.
yeah. You
And
can
they're
like
gonna start
one
send-
that
they're
had-
gonna start sending it back down the feeds?
There's that company over there has 9 years.
30 years ago.
That's
so you can like
everything.
start over again from the beginning.
Everything, the binaries
You
too.
start over from the beginning, so like it'll be 20 years old, but like the next day it'll be the next day in that list. And
It'll
It's
be
like
19 years,
reliving the internet.
364 days.
what?
If they shut the data
It'll be
center down all at
It's,
once.
Usenet's
the
been
Earth's
around
spin would be
longer
slightly
than that.
Near the cool down by 2 degrees.
I posted to Usenet the first time in 1984.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, everybody's got the ghosts of
It's been
Usenet
around
postings
27
past, right?
years
So you
minimum.
go up on Google, you're like, oh, what was I thinking?
They'll probably do the
Why did I
replay.
post to that group?
I've been in some like Comtap editors.
And it's still out there.
And it's
Connect
still
Drive
still out
or
there.
type things.
Well, it's one way for those younger people of here to relive it, get some of that original.
You don't wanna.
Yeah.
All my stupid questions to come.
It'll all
Well,
come.
there was
It was
some
all
very
great
useful
until the green
information
card
back
lottery,
then.
and then that was it.
They're still there.
Until September of '95, Usenet was really good.
What happened? Well, that was the AOL.
That's when
That
AOL
was
got
the
access to
AOL,
the internet, and they put them on
they gave
Usenet,
Usenet to
and
all
it
their
just went to
subscribers.
hell for 3 years. It was nothing
All I
but
know, as soon
garbage.
as Christmas, right after Christmas, and summer vacation, our feed volume spikes. So,
Yeah,
To this
because
day.
all the kids that don't have school all of a sudden.
because everybody's got to post that favorite Blu-ray
Oh, you handle binaries too.
and whatever.
That's a lot.
How much does it cost to get on your?
I haven't even do it. I'm just a network guy.
How many people have never used the Wayback Machine?
Oh, I love
It's
I
newsy.com.
use that a lot.
It's like
I've used it.
14 or
I use
19
that a lot.
dollars.
They're in like the midst of a major upgrade. I noticed that they have a different interface when you
I
see the
avoid
beta
it.
site.
It's just a big
It's quite a bit.
generation. That's all
Archive.org.
it is.
I use Eternal September. It's text only. There's no binary groups. It's free. So.
Eternal September.
Yep.
That's the name of it.
Yep. EternalSeptember.org.
That's a great bean, isn't it?
Yes.
Because September was the traditional biggest spike in.
And on their
News when the kids
webpage,
went
go
back to
to their
school.
webpage and it tells you
True.
what day from whatever day it was in September of '95 that AOL started getting into Usenet.
Well, there's a lawyer in Arizona that posted the famous green card lottery, the first span.
Yeah.
Okay, so Emacs next month. Anything else
I'm
exciting
working
coming
on
up?
something for August. I'm gonna try to see if I can get it to work. I'm
Alright.
messing with Sparkle Share,
If you want
What does
to-
it
which
do?
is like Dropbox, but you control it on your own stuff.
What's Dropbox?
Syncing a folder between multiple boxes.
It's a free cloud-based service that gives you 2 gig of sharing between all your devices.
I've already got my Pogo plug rooted and stuff
It's good
put
for,
on it, so.
you know,
Good
when
for
you
having
find
your stuff read by somebody else.
that too. It's good when you finally, your
Yeah.
folks finally buy a laptop and they say, how come the file I save here isn't available when I pull up Word on this laptop?
It's like WebDrive.
Get a Chromebook.
Yes. Pretty much.
And other alternatives to Dropbox are
What was it?
Walla
Yeah, X Drive, remember that one back in
and
the day?
Spider Oak, where you actually
G Drive,
control
remember
the.
that? When the Gmail limit was only 2 gig? There's G Drive, yeah. I wonder if that's still around.
I got a question on the new Fedora.
The kernel plugin.
Okay, go ahead.
I booted it up and something, I can't remember what it's called now, crashed repeatedly.
Okay.
Like, you know, you
X.
log in as live, it was a gnome something, gnome dash something, I don't remember what it was.
Well, we're already on 301, and this ships with 3. So,
Well, I could never get in to do an install
If you
because
can-
as soon as I hit return, because it gives you the live CD
I
user.
can get it onto a flash key for you. You can probably boot off that.
I don't think it's gonna matter.
You
Well,
can,
with
you
the
can update
upgrades, yeah.
flash key once you have it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I downloaded the
I know you're gonna love this part.
XFCE version and it had no problem.
Okay.
There you go.
And I'm like, with my resource-starved machines that were
Yeah,
built,
XFCE is good.
I know there's a lot of.
1990.
I know there are people who are using Fedora who are
94.
very frustrated over some changes.
I probably don't need all that.
And one of them
It
is-
won't run on there anyhow.
This.
Oh, yeah, the,
Oh.
Okay.
It's not even
Yeah.
zero
So
anymore, right?
it's like EM for your motherboard-based adapter.
Embedded.
So the,
Really?
so the name
It's not
remains
even
the
zero
same.
anymore.
And then it's going to be like this, like P1, and it has to do with
Three slots.
the PCI bus and where it appears in the PCI slots. Okay. So I haven't done any new installs. So my boxes are still
Why
coming
do
on
they
the
keep making
Z0
this
on
more
my
damn
updates.
complicated?
That's why I
the
was
reason
seeing
was-
My
the
laptop is
G0.
fine. My desktop, it's a little quirky because it has a built-in adapter. I've tried a few different ways to get it, but I have to run some ifconfig commands to get my adapter to come up. It's like
The
4
things work
lines
so
of
so
code.
well
out of
before.
date.
Why do they have to screw with things?
But the
when they
laptop,
work?
no problem.
The reason they're doing that is Dell wants, somebody to put in a machine,
Oh,
every
by
time
Steve
they
Ballmer.
install an
Always
identical
be the
machine,
same address for
it should be all the
scripts.
same.
Yeah.
Even if you put in a Mac card, or an external NIC interface card in a PCI slot with a lower MAC address, the order that shows up in SBIN, IP, or ifconfig is always going to be the same.
So they go through all this stuff to affect something, to fix a problem that happens to 1 out of 10 million computers in the entire world. Whereas they screwed everything up when you boot up with an attached USB drive and now your SD,
And it
A, B, and
changes
C all
the
get
order,
rearranged.
yes.
You unplug it and they get rearranged again.
That's why you need to use labels.
UW.
Those don't work for my application.
UW
though.
ADM.
I gotta have the actual device node. I don't care if it's HDA or SDA, I don't care about that. I just gotta have it consistent.
How many
It
people
takes
are
thing
5
is, if you
running?
seconds to
think about it,
change which one it is.
The laptop, it might have multiple, oftentimes a laptop has at least 3 internet connections. Standard Ethernet, wireless LAN, and Bluetooth.
Chromebooks.
So
My BIOS
that's
How- how
one
do
of
you-
their,
cellular.
Paula doesn't know there's going to be
Bluetooth
one in
wasn't
the
even a
house.
twinkle in somebody's eye when my
Oh.
machines were built.
Okay.
I put in
I made my own a couple weeks ago.
I put in a gigabit.
At 2 bills, I'm just going to buy one.
I haven't run an ifconfig against it.
The other thing too, there's been a lot of polarity, both positive and negative. That's not really a good way to describe it, but how do magnets work? Ubuntu 11.04.
Oh.
Unity.
Is dividing
And
everybody.
F15. Gnome 3.
I'm gonna take a gun and shoot that bottom right.
This one?
Yeah, Gnome 3.
Why?
I can't put it up.
There's enough
I guess-
extensions to make it look like anything you want, more than Gnome 2 could ever do. You can make it look exactly like Gnome 2. Yes.
I see you now. Thanks for coming.
Take care, Adam.
There was somebody that posted a list that they booted up F13, thinking that was Gnome 3, but no, it's
Actually,
not.
no, that was, no, I actually installed Gnome
So-
15, or Fedora 15, and rolled Fedora 13.
So this is typo. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. But, yeah. And I should have put it on the list because I didn't. But there's like all these extensions that have come out in the last 2 weeks. It's an amazing number.
When you say extensions, you're talking about when you right click on the,
No, it's,
on the,
they're called GNOME
Yeah.
Shell extensions.
yeah.
Wait a minute, it's XTEN. It's the difference between Europe and.
So you can
Extension.
uninstall them and then you right click on the,
Yeah, so like there's one called No AL. It's for like the no accessibility icon. So you can put this in dot local GNOME shell and then extensions, right? You put it in there, you press Alt F2, then you type in R and press enter, and then it'll reload the whole shell, and that extension will be active. You don't have to log out and log back in for the new extensions to be active.
Now
Wow.
that's
okay.
an improvement.
There are several. Just do a yum search for GNOME shell extensions. I can spell that one wrong. And you'll see at least 5 in the Fedora repos, and there's at least 8 in Bugzilla waiting to be accepted. The only one that people really want right now is weather. That's supposed to be built into 3.2, but there are extensions that you can find and download. Just do a Google search, they're all over
Okay.
the place. Some of it is on German sites, but it's all still in English. But yeah, I've got,
Sparkins
I add
Election Night.
one to add a folder list, so I click on the folder and it shows me all my drive folders. So I just click on it and go from there.
Taskbar,
There is
put that back in.
there's like 3 different docks that you can use. So like a very similar to Mac OS 10 and some other things. You can change some of the, there's a command called gset. So you can say gset, and I'm gonna get this wrong, but it's like time enable seconds. For time, seconds, enable. And then you'll have seconds in the clock. There's an extension where you can get your Google Calendar ID, put it in the extension, and it'll match that up into GNOME Shell. So it'll show you like your calendar appointments. Yeah, there's,
that'd be good.
it's kind of like Firefox. There's extensions that are going to be everywhere to allow you to do pretty much anything.
Yeah, I can see
And
a
it's all
whole
like
bunch of,
CSS and all that stuff. It's all based on web
I can
standard
see a
stuff.
whole bunch of 14-year-olds writing extensions
Yeah.
this summer.
Just do some research and look around. There'll be a lot more.
This is
Yeah.
counterintuitive to me, that you have to actually go through and install all different packages to actually basically change functionality of your desktop.
Right, because there's no installer available. There is an XML file you can change to change all the theme colors if you want. There's a setting you can change where
Yeah, there's
in the corner of a window,
you know,
how active the mouse is when you mouse to the corner, you can extend that out by a number of pixels, so the mouse will grab sooner.
Sounds like register files.
What
They're
are
all
you-
text.
What are you saying about the mouse in the corner? Sorry.
It's just
So if you want
the number of
resize
pixels
window-
assigned to a window, so when the mouse moves towards it, you can grab it and pull.
Instead of it
You don't have to
actually
be as-
being the physically visible border, you could make a virtual border, so the border
And so-
actually isn't bigger, but there's just a higher
The other thing
active area
too-
that you can grab. So you don't
Okay.
have to be as accurate like me with my trackball. When it gets
Oh,
dirty, kind
okay.
of jumps a little.
XFCE design for better options.
GNOME Tweak Tool. You can add any number of these buttons back in.
I hate
No problem.
mice, I always
They're
use
there.
trackballs.
And I can define my
All
own
the
buttons.
commands are still for every window. They're just not shown.
But then
Right.
I'm putting them
I
in.
grew up with a
The other
three-button
thing, too,
trackball, so.
For GNOME is something called Looking Glass. If you do that Alt F2 and type LG, Remember, like in Doom, you get that little console thing? You kind of get that. And you can look at the errors from it. You can look at what extensions are running. It has all sorts of little inputs and outputs. as
Sounds
to
like
what's
you need to
going on.
write a blog write-up.
I've read all this stuff on other people's blogs.
Yeah, but put it all together.
Okay.
I'm so afraid.
Be a
of
news
it.
aggregator.
Hey, that's
A
why
gnome
my handle
aggregator.
is Relayer. So, Craig, did you want to talk about that?
I just
I'm
wanna-
done.
I just want to let people know that who knows what Chromebooks are? Who doesn't? Maybe that's
One of those
Never
CR
heard.
What?
I've read about, some students
All
get
new.
their notes about that.
For 15?
They're basically.
If you choose basic video mode,
laptops without hard
and you
drives,
do
they use the
install,
file.
it might not.
In
crash.
simple terms, that's exactly what it
It
is.
gives you
I'm
two
thinking
It gives.
about
I got to play with one of the Chromebooks.
Oh,
Boot
that's
time
just
to a
my
login
resource
prompt is
storage.
6 seconds.
All this
Log
eye
in,
candy
time
that
to a
is coming out
usable
nowadays is
system
much for
was
what
another
power
4
I have.
seconds.
Wow.
So technically in under 20 seconds. Under 20 seconds easy. You're at
That's
a
including the
machine that's
time
usable.
To identify and authenticate.
Yes. It's
Problem is that
beautiful,
becomes too much
absolutely
work.
beautiful. Downside, you gotta have internet connectivity at all times to use it. Now, talking to the two
There's a
developers that were
switch
here,
says fallback
they
mode
said,
in your new
yeah,
GNOME
we're working on the
2.2.
offline docs, offline
No, no
apps,
two.
unofficially. So,
Unity does the
20%.
same.
well, it
My
was,
video card is an
without
NVMe
saying too much, it was basically a statement of,
MX44.
yeah, we're
So
working
you
on
need
it,
the,
but
the 96. drive.
officially, this is what we're doing.
Officially, it's not happening.
Not yet. No. So,
Kmod.
$200.
Yeah, cause they had the,
Wow.
there was that thing they did a long time ago.
Was this a driver from
The Google
NVIDIA?
something, so you could work offline on
Yeah.
it.
Oh, I don't use
Google
those. I
Gears,
use them.
maybe?
Yeah. Like I said, it's,
I only use
They
those
took that
until
offline
the
for
open
security
source ones
reasons, I
became
think.
usable.
yeah, there's reasons. And whatever they may be, but
I like my CPU not
They're-
speaking up.
guys, if you're
It's only a
near,
problem
if
with
you're
certain web pages that
somewhere
have
where you've always got
40,000
internet connectivity,
flash things
or
with
you're willing to
downloads.
cough up for
Yeah,
the
that's
3G
what
because they're
Flashbots
supposed to have
are.
3G network capabilities. Buy a data plan and you've got something.
That's more of a problem on my laptop, cause it
But
overheats all the
I,
time.
these are cool. Couple $100 for a laptop.
Oh,
Wow.
John and I was talking too much. What are the specs on Atom processors?
1.6.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the newer Atoms, the more power efficient ones.
Supposed to get
How
like
big
a,
are the screens?
12.
that's what I don't like. These are 10.5 to 11.5.
I thought one was a 12.
Oh, I thought it was very
Or
early.
is it 11? Is it 11 and 12?
I think it's 11 and 12.
Does it have a
Damn
tablet version?
magnifying glass to read them.
Don't you want Migo for a
What's the battery
tablet?
life?
So there's
Yeah, with Amigo? Any
Well,
6
CTOs?
hours with this one. With the Acer, it's 6 hours on an 11.5 inch, and then 8.5 hours
See,
on a
that's the
12
12.
inch.
Yeah.
And they said they hit June 15th.
Next week.
Get a chance to play with them.
Laptops aren't interesting to me unless I got a
Was there like
17
a,
inch screen.
was there like a fee or something, or like some fee for the service?
There will. Well, if you're going to use the 3G service, yeah,
But if you're not, there's no fee, you just get it for $200 and you don't pay anything.
it's yours.
And it's all cloud, so all your stuff is stored as movement.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really funny. The advertisement. They had a little video, and this guy's sitting here working on one of these Chromebooks, and he's talking, and this little kid walks in, takes the laptop away, goes in the back, drops a bowling ball on it, brings out another laptop, sets it down. He logs in, gets back to working.
The same, was it like the same session? Or was it?
No, I mean the file's still out there. It saved it when that thing quit. It was already saved. It's in the cloud. So, it was a funny commercial, but it was trying to get the point across that who cares what happens to this box?
Right.
Your crap's still sitting up there.
They're giving, Google's, I think, donating like 250 of those to school and consequence, because it's one of the biggest.
Yeah. Well, they've been a test site for them with the original, with the one that Google built. So, they're giving them the newer versions.
I like that one. I don't know if those are gonna be like it, but that one, that's CR48 or whatever.
Yeah.
That
The
thing
difference
a
is
tank.
that thing was a 15-inch screen though.
No, it's only 10 inch.
No, those CR48s were bigger than this. They were bigger than 11 inches.
It's not that big. It does, I mean, I don't know for sure, but it's about that size, I would think. They were durable. I mean, that's what impressed me. I didn't drop it out of the house.
Which one?
That's like 1.6.
Which one is the?
Google's the CR40
Yeah, but which one of these is going to have some?
Engadget.
That's bag sucker.
I just want to see what's nicest.
12
It was a 12-inch.
one,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry. I thought it was bigger.
I forgot that was a Gobi chip.
Well, yeah,
Isn't that a desert
reading
motor
about it, I
China?
thought it was a piece
That's
of
their
crap, actually.
multi-
Yeah. Solid.
Carrier or service
That's
thing.
why I want one. Like I said, this is. I see this. I see the future.
Oh, it handles.
But I don't see a tablet there.
I would like,
American,
I mean,
European
if I was gonna
standards.
buy, I mean,
No.
I've got a laptop. And
No.
I'm gonna take a
Everybody's-
laptop and-
Oh, a convertible tablet.
That probably will come along,
Data plan.
but this is.
Yeah.
You know, it's revision 1. You're talking about a revision 1 here.
And I think you can also like buy a week or buy a day. You don't have to be contracted necessarily.
Wow.
Oh, for the 3G kind?
Yeah. Because my brother got a CR48. He was lucky. They sent him one. I was like, oh man, how did you get one? In the middle of, well, he didn't get hit by a tornado, so that's good. But yeah, when he was up here in March, he said, I might just buy $10 worth of data so I can watch something on the way home. Because he lives like 6 hours south of Missouri. And he had one. He loved it. So I think that's it for tonight. Awesome.
What gives you that idea?
Good night. We still have 2 viewers.